So happy to be here today. Thank you very much, in-studio audience. Thank you, folks out there on the internet. I'm Chase Jarvis. I'm a photographer and a director. I hope you're all familiar with my work. So Chase Jarvis Live, once a month or twice a month we get together, and I'd like to bring on inspirational, amazing people here to my Seattle studio, sit down with me, and hopefully enlighten both me and all y'all out in the world, especially you folks too in the internet, about what it is that these folks are doing that is amazing. I've learned so much of the show. I'm going to continue to bring on amazing guests. Today's guest is going to blow your mind, I promise. I wanted a huge thanks to HP for helping me present this show. Big shout out to Braun Color and B&H without whom a lot of the gear and support wouldn't be possible. We got a giveaway. The folks who've been really pimping this show out in the internet Twitter world. We got two folks at CNFX and at Terry M. Gardner. You guys win signed CDs of Zoë Keating's. We'll be getting those to you in the mail if you reach out to production@ChaseJarvis.com. Whew. Amazing show today, you guys. The person that we're going to learn from has, in addition to having been trained as a classical musician since age 8, she has gone rogue, basically. And she has defied all the traditional trappings of a musician. She doesn't have a manager. She doesn't have a label. She's gone direct to her fans, her 1.5 million Twitter followers, perhaps better than any artist I know. It's very, very inspiring. We have a ton to learn from her. And in addition, she's going to weave in some of the most emotional and amazing performances between our Q&A that hopefully you guys have ever seen. She was up here doing sound check a second ago, and I expected to see 16 cellos on stage, and it was just one person, an amazing amount of sound coming from her. So please, without further ado, join me in welcoming Zoë Keating. Oh, you're amazing. Please.
Thanks for the great intro. I better hold up my end of the bargain. All right, I'm just going to connect all my bits, and then we'll be ready to go.
hug you, but we're not even getting started. So, wow, that was freaking amazing.
Well, that was a really good example of how things can go wrong. Like, I was like, oh no, I pressed the wrong button in the middle of the piece. And then crazy things were happening, but I had to save it.
Yeah, and it came back. And one of the things actually we were talking about, how complicated what it is that you're doing. There's a million things going through your brain, right? You're looping, I don't know how many tracks is that looping right there, and you have to time them all. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the technology part of what you're doing?
Well, the concept is pretty simple. I'm just, I'm playing the cello. That part's easy. So you just play the cello, and then I set the computer to record all the layers as I go along.
Got it.
So
and that's what you're doing with your foot?
Yeah, it's with my feet, but it's also sequenced on the computer. So the computer knows in a certain section to like record the cello for 4 bars, stop recording, record the cello for 2 bars, stop recording, fade up track 1, all these kind of things can happen automatically. Wow. And I can trigger these things in little batches as I go along. And if I mess up a piece, or if I play the wrong thing or hit the wrong button, I can always just like take over and wing it for a while and then go back to something else. So it's very, it's sort of a technique for doing a lot of different layers of cello.
It's like a technique for danger.
Yeah, it is a little dangerous.
Right? It is, but there's something, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had a chance to visit before you guys were invited into the party. And I think one of the things that really resonated with me was like this exact thing. Like when you're doing live so many things on your own, mostly a cellist would have to just focus on their one bed of music, right? And you've got all this stuff happening. And you said something about like enjoying the danger or...
Yeah. I feel like, the classical part of me loves to rehearse and make things perfect and make, a perfect like a perfect little phrase, and I'll just do that over and over until I think it's perfect, and that's what classical musicians do. And then I reach some point where I'm totally bored with that. And
that's where the avant cellist part came
yeah,
in,
and
right?
it just doesn't feel dangerous enough, and I feel like I'm cheating myself. Like I'm always looking for this cathartic experience. Like I want to experience sort of like a musical catharsis. And that's what music does for me, and I'm trying to make it for myself every time I play. And so if it gets too perfect, of course, the perfection helps you hear it, but then it becomes dead somehow. So then I start changing things. And something about putting the technology on stage where it's not always possible. In fact, it's not possible to play things exactly the same way every time, and things go wrong. So that means that you have to kind of do this mixture of perfection and imperfection. And I really like being on the edge of that. It sort of makes it feel alive and breathing to me.
That's so beautiful. You said so many one-liners in that little. If I was writing it down. And for the folks at home, actually, if you like what Zoe's saying, we will give the person who sort of retweets the best thing that you've said. If you retweet that plus the URL to this show and at HP Print, we're going to give away a signed one-of-a-kind edition of 1 print that I shot of Zoe before this show.
He took some really good pictures. You take great pictures.
Yeah. Well, we had a great shoot before the show, and so if you were out there helping us pimp the show and sharing it with the world, driving people to this URL, at the end of the show we'll pick one of those one-liners and give you the print. So
I had this really funny image as you were talking of like people walking down the street, and we all have little bubbles next to our head, which was the last brilliant thing that we said.
Mine would be empty, actually, sadly. Well, that was. Go ahead, please.
Okay, it was just a funny image of everybody be trying to outdo each other with their one-liners.
Yes, and there is a little bit of a competition because one of a kind picture of you signed would be a treasure. So let's unwind this a little bit, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about your background. So what I know, I tried not to go too deep when. I mean, I've been familiar with your work for more than a year now, and before I had seen you. And when I just heard you, I was like, gosh, you would be amazing to have on Chase Jarvis Live. But I don't know if I got room for 16 cellos. And when I then did a little more research and found out that it's just you. So what's the genesis of that? Like you started at 8, classically trained, and now here, that's a huge migration. So talk to me.
Well, there actually are 16 cellos here. They're just invisible.
Excellent. Some of you guys are out there in the audience cellisting.
Well, I did start when I was really young, like most music students do. And I had, it seemed like I was pretty good at it, and I loved doing it. And, I went through high school playing the cello, and there was no music in my school that I could participate in. So I went to sort of I took my lessons far away and did a lot of commuting as a high school student. And when I was about 15 or 16, I was suddenly hit by stage fright. So it's that, I'll just do a demonstration of what I used to play cello like. So I could play a piece perfectly, and then when I would get to an audition or on stage, it would just be like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't make a sound. Like I could hardly even move my bow. And I had an experience where I actually had an audition, and my hands were shaking so much that I just dropped the bow. And my hand just like slipped. It was so sweaty, it just slipped off the fingerboard. It was like it was so humiliating. And I would try everything I could to control it, but I could not control it. And it's like when I would get in public, I could not play. It was like I was a beginner. And in my room, I could do almost anything. And it just hit really suddenly. I think it probably happens to a lot of teenagers. You suddenly become aware of like yourself.
Yeah, and how you play with the world.
And especially in the world of classical music, you have to be perfect. And I had a real hard time, sort of meeting other people's standards of perfection. My own standards are different. But anyways, so I decided that as much as I loved that feeling, like my favorite thing to do is to be in an orchestra and to be lost in the sound. Like when you're in a really good orchestra and you're just absorbed by the music, I just love that feeling. And my goal was to be in an orchestra, that's what I wanted. And I realized that, you know what, unless I can handle this problem, I can't do it, so I can't do it. So I went off.
Literally said you can't do it.
I just said I can't do it. So I went off to Sarah Lawrence College, which is a liberal arts school in New York.
Got it.
And
You're from Canada, though, right?
I'm from Toronto.
Got it.
Yeah.
Amazing city in itself.
Yeah.
But you went to school in New York.
Yeah. So I went to school there, and it was very like, it was very different. It was very small. It was very. I mean, my high school was extremely small as well, but this was full of the misfits. Like Sarah Lawrence. I hope they're not watching this because it's basically
sure.
it's basically a school for misfits.
They've been cheerleading you and your million fans.
And there I discovered how to improvise. I had never improvised before. I discovered like the dance department. I would play music with the dancers. I just like improvise to dancers. I had friends who were filmmakers, and I would play cello for them so they could videotape me or film me on Super 8 or whatever it was that they were doing.
Right.
And it was just total freedom. And I just discovered that I wasn't scared playing rock and roll. I wasn't scared playing while improvising. I wasn't scared while playing my own music. I was only scared while playing classical music.
Well, that's a great lesson to translate that into because the audience out on the internet, the world are basically creative folks, culturally curious, and we've had whole episodes about fear and art breaking through, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something about making it yours.
Yeah, that's what I say. Make it yours.
All right, sweet.
Yeah, totally.
See, we're the same person.
Yep.
Except she plays better than I do. I think that was a courage thing, a breakthrough for me as well. Mm-hmm. As soon as you're imitating the masters to try and acquire knowledge and information, and you're being judged by your peers and by the world with what you put out there, that's trying to line up with that. And as soon as you sort of go rogue, then it's hard for people to call you on your shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Once you sort of decide to do that, it takes then the next phase is sort of finding your voice. So that was my next stage, was figuring out, well, what is it that I want to say, And so that took me a while as well. And when I got out of school, I was broke,
we should comment about that. It's a horrible system that puts our country puts its youth in these things, and they leave with huge bills, and with the expectation used to be that you're going to get a great job to pay that off. I won't go too far down the education stereotype.
So I had a really valuable liberal arts degree.
Right. I had a philosophy degree, and my parents were so what are you going to philosophize about being unemployed while you're unemployed?
Yep. And so I just started. I was still playing music, but I landed in San Francisco, and had never been there before. I moved there with some friends on a whim, and thought I'd stay for a year, and I'm still there. And I found the beginning of the dot-com boom, and there was something about the energy of like, oh my gosh, we're going to change the world. That sort of the energy of the technology world, I just really loved it. And I got my foot in the door as like an admin in one of these startups. And they said I was the worst admin they ever had, so I became an engineer. I stayed at the same company.
All the engineers, earmuffs.
Yeah. And I did some coding, did some Java stuff, and became an information architect in the end, just sort of doing things like that. And I did that, and I played in bands in the evenings. And eventually, sort of, my music career just got more and more and more and more until I had to leave my day job.
had to leave your day job.
Yeah.
Like everyone in that camera right there would give a limb to leave their day job, I think. But
It
it's
was
a beautiful.
scary, but
So there's a lot. What I heard is I heard a lot of like fear breakthroughs, both from your stage fright and from the financial deal where you got out of school. So is it safe to say, and it's safe to say to the world, that it's actually normal, all these fears that we have to transcend?
Sure.
And I think I thought that it was only the people who couldn't do it that were afraid. And what I've come, not that I'm out the other side entirely, because there's still all kinds of fear that crops up, but that it's there for everyone. And that to use it as fuel, so to speak.
And it's also that, you know, the thing of that you get like 9 no's for every 1 yes. And if you focus on the no's, you'll definitely stop what you're doing. Like, because I feel like it was all.
If people focus on my no's, they'll definitely stop what they're doing for sure. No, but I think but I've said the same thing so many times in so many different ways that I actually have a blog post that says "Get used to hearing no."
Yeah.
And you have that same experience.
Well, there was one thing that really stuck with me, and it was I really loved working at the startup. We did information visualization.
Wow.
You know, back
before it was cool.
Before it was cool, or before you even knew that you would suffer from information overload, we had to explain that someday there's going to be a lot of information and you don't want to sort through it. But the CEO of the company, it was a really small startup, and we never had more than 30 employees. And the CEO, he got cancer, and he died really suddenly, like within a year. And he was really sort of like, I just really admired him, and he was the kind of guy who would make it so that you were happy to be there till midnight every night working. Like he really motivated you.
Maybe
it really
get
felt
some
important.
of his secrets.
Yeah. But he, when he passed away, he left me, I didn't get it until after he passed away, he left me his CD collection of Yo-Yo Ma CDs. And I got it in a box, and there's a card in there, and it just said, "Zoe, you really should focus on the music. Don't give up." And it was just like, whoa. And so that really was like a big moment. And then I decided, okay, I can make this happen. So it was shortly after was the end of the company, you know, the end of the dot-com boom. And I had a mandatory year off.
Nice.
And I used that to really focus and just like, you know, take those words to heart.
But you also have told me in a previous conversation that the information architecture stuff that you learned is very tied into music.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think I would be
patterns
doing what I'm doing if I hadn't had that tech background.
And is the tech part of what led you to do the laptop and the looping and whatnot?
I think for one thing, computers are not scary to me.
That's probably expensive. I don't know.
No, it's not. Computers are often scary to a lot of musicians, and for me, it's just like an extension of myself. Like the cello is me. I feel like I can talk with the cello. It's like
It's an extension.
Yeah, for a long time I felt very inarticulate, and the cello allowed me to talk in a way that I couldn't. And then the computer allowed me to accomplish things that I wanted to do musically that I couldn't do as like, you know, a human. So I just feel like I'm just sort of extending myself, like. And I think because I had this tech background, it felt very natural to incorporate a computer.
Awesome.
So.
Well, the hair too is amazing. So it's so remarkable, your hair. That was one of the first things that when I looked at a picture of you, I was like, wow, she's stunning and beautiful, of course. And this hair is such an amazing characteristic. Like, is there a thing behind the hair?
I have no idea.
Actually, let's take a picture of, this is your hair. No, just kidding. So we had a little conversation about it too.
The hair is a total improvisation.
But so that came out of your desire to break free from classical music and like express yourself.
I think my hair, I've been expressing myself with my hair since as long as I was able to do so.
Since as long,
yeah. My mother and I, definitely some of our earliest battles were over my hair. So.
The era of the hair wars.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny that it's just become this thing. So I sometimes say that I don't get nervous anymore, but my hair does.
My hair is freaking out right now. Mine too. Maybe. There you go. Mine's freaking out right now because I'm on stage
transferred the
with
whole
Zoe.
thing onto my hair.
So just a reminder to the folks out there in internet land that we are taking questions from you at #CJ Live and also the live in-studio audience. We do have a mic, I feel like, somewhere around here that it would be great if we could have that because I see people with hands up already. Let's fire off to a question for Zoe there.
That first track that you played, I see, you know, you're totally immersed in playing that music, and it seems that you're just like lost in the moment. How's that like? How's that feeling?
You know, it's really hard to explain. That I'd say that feeling that I'm experiencing when I'm doing that is sort of what I'm always trying to achieve. And when it works, I have no idea if it's been 1 minute or 1 hour. It's like it's hard to say. It's like I don't exist. That's what I would use. I have all these things going on. I have to play these parts, hit these buttons. But when it really works, it's like I just cease to exist, and it's just music and light and motion and color, and it's very abstract and hard to explain. And I think of that as like the perfect state. Some of my earliest musical memories are lying down on the floor with my head between the speakers, which I had moved, put next to my ears. Yes. Didn't have headphones. You know.
Metallica.
Metallica. That's awesome.
What? I can't hear anymore. Sorry.
Yeah. I would listen to. My dad had a pretty good classical record collection, and I remember listening to Smetana. I think that's when I first had it was like the Moldau, this really great big orchestral piece, and I was like lying on the floor. I was like, wow. And I think there's just something. Music just takes me to this other place. I can just go there like that. And
That's amazing.
So.
Amazing. We've got lots of other questions back there. Yeah, go ahead, back in the corner.
I was wondering if you could speak on your relationship with classical music or the classical music scene now.
Mm-hmm. Well, could I speak on my relationship with classical music? It's definitely a love-hate relationship in that I love classical music, but I feel too constrained by it. So it's like I'd love to listen to it, but I often feel like, for example, why can't you just do a cover of a classical piece and then like go off in another direction without it being sort of, I don't know, it's sort of not, like in other forms of music you can improvise, you can do an interpretation of something that's totally different. And I feel like as wonderful as classical music is, we've got this idea of preciousness about it, which I feel really needs to kind of change. It's like music is more living than that, than we let it be. I'm not totally sure that the people who compose the music that we listen to today, who are now long dead, would agree with how precious we treat it, you know?
Yeah, I don't think they would, actually. I don't have much to go on, but I have a disdain for the preciousness of art in general. Like, there's just this radical expression. It's a throwing together of emotion and vision and exploration, and yet we can't touch it often and feel it or get close to it. There's ropes around it.
It's also, there's something funny about our era too. Like, we're in a very self-expressed kind of era. Like, it's all about the individual. We're interested in individuals, and we're interested in, and we're all expressing ourselves. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect in that classical music doesn't always feel like you can do that. There are some very amazing classical musicians who are able to do that, who are able to express something universal from themselves inside of a larger piece. But I think that...
that's the exception, though, rather than the rule.
I think so.
Reminder, when we get back, she's going to play a couple more tracks. We're going to take questions at #CJLive. We are going to have some more here in the audience when we get back. But you mentioned extending yourself. Would you mind extending yourself and maybe play 2 tracks this time?
Sure, definitely.
What are we going to hear? You want to tell us?
Let's see. I always try to go with the mood. It does seem like we were talking about, fear and stuff like that. So I'm going to play a piece called Lost, which was very much about my sort of this transition period where I moved from San Francisco to the countryside, and I was like, what am I doing here? I couldn't quite figure out what the next step was, and I was about to become a mother, which was a very scary feeling. I was excited and scared, and it was really kind of a sense of a time of turmoil, I guess, so that's what this piece is about.
Great. We'll play that one and then surprise us with one other.
Yeah, and then I'll surprise myself by doing the next one.
Excellent.
So
Thank you so much, Zoe.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay. my computer is totally frozen. That was awesome. It sort of started doing the piece, and then I could no longer control the computer with my feet. And so then if I can't control the computer,
You're just gonna play us a little ditty
what do
then,
I
right?
do? I thought I might just like go into, yeah,
So do you want to restart that?
Freebird or something.
Freebird?
No, I'm joking. See, that part is still there.
All right.
So here, I'm gonna have to, we'll just have to talk while I quit and restart.
I'm not sweating it one bit. I actually like. To me, this is part of the artistic process that doesn't really. And honestly, this doesn't get talked about enough, and it doesn't get shared. The fact that I take pictures that don't work, and you play songs that have interruptions on stage,
Yeah.
and one of the
Usually
things
not quite so bad as this, but.
not the full like restart the computer, but the idea that is something in our culture that doesn't get talked about. I think one of the things that moves creativity and art forward is artists failing, and that story doesn't get told. I mean, there's so many stories in pop culture about artists making it. You didn't hear all the times that Warhol heard no, and Basquiat heard no,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Degas heard no, and they go on and on and on. So one of the things that I'm going to drive back at while you're restarting this guy here is, can you tell us a little bit about the software that you are using
Oh,
so
yeah.
that we can
So I'm using this thing called MIDI pipe.
MIDI pipe?
MIDI pipe is a very
Smoke that
exciting
MIDI pipe.
piece of software, and it launches Apple scripts for me.
Okay.
So Apple scripts to open and close GUIs. I have to open the GUI, kill the GUI, sometimes multiple times in a
Kill
song.
the GUI? Did you hear her say that? That's going to be one of the quotes that's going to come
Yeah, I
out
have to kill
on
the GUI,
Twitter.
sometimes
Kill the GUI.
multiple times in a song. And then, let's see, yeah, there's a bunch of other things. Like, then there's Ableton Live, which is opening now, which is good.
Ableton Live?
Yeah.
Is that the sort of the mixing board portion of it, or is that the looping?
Ableton is, it was made for DJs to sort of take little samples and create DJ sets with them,
Got
like
it.
loop, sort of, they have loops and they can mix them together.
Sure.
And I use it to record the cello, like take samples of what I'm playing.
Got it.
And then it also runs MIDI scripting, so like it plays all the,
All your pre-programmed scripts that you can just have. And that's
Yeah.
That's what you're launching with
yeah,
your
that's what I'm
toes.
launching.
Got it.
And then I have something called Super Looper.
Sweet.
Super Looper, which is a little kind of like standard sort of overdub looping, like layering kind of thing.
Got it.
And I use those three things together. And sometimes they, I'll send a message to one and it'll be like, it didn't do it.
Okay, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm having coffee right now.
Yeah. And
So do you want to take a second, get restarted, or
yeah, let's see if this is gonna happen
see
here.
if we're happening? So we'll take some questions actually, if we can, while she's preparing her thing, and I'll answer them.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Okay, there, it works.
All right, it
Yay.
works. So
Yay.
you want to just dive right into it since you got to
Sure.
go?
I'm gonna play since perhaps that piece about being lost is just not. Maybe it doesn't want to be played.
Maybe it's lost.
Or maybe it's lost. So I'm going to play a different piece, which is called The Path.
The Path.
And this one, I have a real hard time sticking to recorded versions of songs. It's like, it's that thing of like sometimes I move on and the song hasn't, the song that's on your album.
Right.
So this one, I'm sort of evolving it in a new direction. I don't know where. And I've been evolving it on stage. So it's kind of different, and it's
So are we going to see some of that evolution?
yeah, and I'm going to wing the ending, so we'll see what happens.
I would love to see a winged ending.
A winged ending.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zoe.
Okay, here we go. Wish me luck, okay? All right.
chair. Holy smokes, that was amazing. So there's so many questions pouring in on Twitter right now at hashtag CJ Live. If y'all out there in internet land want to keep talking, if you're just joining us now, I'm Chase Jarvis.
I can see that one.
Yeah.
Do you have a click in your ear, or are you a cyborg?
That's why at Matthew Webble wants to know, are you a cyborg or is there just a click in your ear?
I am not telling if I'm a cyborg or not.
Best kept secret.
But that's a good question, actually. I don't have a click, but what I do is I record a little loop of myself playing. And so in the places where I need to have like a really amorphous place to play, then I'll hear myself coming back. But I find that something like a click or hearing that all the time throws me off and makes me unmusical. So it's all programmed here to turn it on and off at specific times. Like I know when I need it, so then it comes on. And I also have a button that I can turn it on.
Wow.
So
you're not a cyborg, but you get some components of cyborgness.
Yeah.
Not the hair. This is very organic, your hair.
Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting for the time. Like, see, I have these pedals, and it feels kind of clunky. And I really would like this stuff to be more integrated into the cello. Like, it'd be so great if instead of pressing something on the floor, I could just hit the side, you know, and I could make it musical, some of the tapping.
Hopefully there is some genius entrepreneur out there who's listening to you and is going to run away and make that.
Yeah, so
she's at
people,
Zoë Cello.
Interwebs out there,
Yes.
if you can think of a way to make my MIDI triggering more built into the cello, like a little film that would fit over it, that would be. But I don't want you to damage the finish here on Ariège, because he's very special.
All cellos have names. I didn't know that until I met Joshua Roman, who's one of the premier classical music people here in the United States, and he told me his cello's name was Midge, and you told me like you which is a weird name for a cello. I'm just going to call it what it is, right? I love you though, Joshua, if you're watching. How did you come across your cello? What's its name?
His name is Ariège, which is the town that he's from in France, and it was made for me about 5 years ago.
Made for you.
Yes.
Anybody out there have an iPad or a camera that's made for them? I didn't think so. It's great.
Yeah, I was looking for a cello for years, and
Like in the woods, like
you go to
how does one look for a cello?
You go to
Like,
violin
is there a
shops,
network?
violin cello shops.
Okay.
You know, you just look around, and they are really, really expensive. And I had there's different people in different cities who work on my cello because I fly with it, and it gets kind of messed up in the flight. And so there's this guy named Robert Brewer Young in New York, and he would work on my cello in New York when I was there. And so I happened to just mention that I was looking for a cello. And I didn't know this, but he went off and he made a cello that he thought was, because I explained to him what I was looking for. And he then spent the next 6 months making a cello. And then he said, Zoe, I've made you a cello. Will you come try it? And we met up in Italy. That's happened to be in the middle.
This is a fantasy. I don't believe any of it.
And he brought the cello to Italy, and we met up in this beautiful...
And you got married, and now you had 3 kids, right?
Yeah, we met up in this beautiful house in the countryside. And he brought the cello. And here it is. And I've even seen, I went to visit his shop to pick it up when it was finally finished, because it wasn't totally done when he brought it. And I seen the stump that the part of the cello came from. So it's all willow in the back, which is pretty interesting material to make a cello out of in the back because it's more dense than spruce, I guess.
Wow.
And what's good about that is that if you're on stage in front of a kick drum player, it doesn't feed back as much.
I have never been on stage in front of a kick drum, but it's good to know if that was the pickup cello. That's amazing, though, that you had someone actually manufacture that for you. So there's another question on the internet that I think is really interesting. It's from @RRosePerry. What's the balance between composition and improv in your work? You talked about improv, and once you started improving, you sort of were set free. But what's the balance now? Where are you? Like on
I
the
would
scale?
say, again, it's this push-pull relationship between perfection and danger. And the improvisation is the danger, and the composition is me controlling things, you know, the perfect control. And I do a mixture of them. Some pieces are, you know, 95% composed and 5% improvised, and others are half and half. I usually have at least one piece on my set each day which is totally improvised, just so that I can discover new things. Because sometimes I fail really badly, and other times I learn new things, or I do new stuff that I wouldn't have come up with otherwise.
Well, I love that idea, and it translates into almost any creative medium, right? Like as photographers going out there, and even in my own personal experience, for a number of years, I was only paid to go out and shoot high-end advertising when everything is so precise. This person's going to be there at the sun at the right time, at the right place with the right people, and like I still enjoy that, but where is the opposite side? Where is the improv in photography?
Yeah, it's kind of like you need both.
And the more I started like going off the deep end, actually, ironically, it drew the folks who you would think would only hire you for being precise. It sort of created interest over there, and I was able to fill in that part of me.
There's also this thing where I think that it's by doing things like that you hone the craft, because when you have to do a certain job, I really focus on like the craft of it, and then really knowing your thing really well makes it so that you can improvise.
You've heard the 10,000 hours.
Yeah, it's like you're prepared. You've got all this work behind you, so that in that moment of uncertainty, you can do the right thing. So, hopefully.
Questions from the audience. You've been so patient. I'm so happy. You're like hands up
You're
all
so
over the
excited.
place. If you folks in the back, don't hesitate. You can come forward if you want. I know it's getting crowded back there, but please ask away.
It's a real stellar treat to be in front of you. I'm a little overwhelmed, so I don't know if my question will come out. But you mentioned your past experience as a programmer, and from the sound of your music, it sounds like your left and right hemisphere are working in tandem with so much power, goddess power.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, though, to understand a little bit more about your process of how you compose or how you improvise, because it really comes down to you're using your brain very well. And so I'm just very curious.
Well done using your brain.
Thank you. Golf clap. It's almost like a theme now, these two sides, I think. And I think that I do a fair amount of improvisation. I'll just play. And it used to be, when I had this terrible stage fright, I found that I lived in a warehouse in San Francisco that was not unsimilar to this. It had some things in common. We had the Resner heaters up there.
Nice.
And,
they occasionally kick on during the broadcast.
We would have these sort of all-night parties there, and I would improvise for like a horizontal audience on beanbags. These long 20-minute free cello odysseys. And I was terrified to do that at first. I was like really scared. And I found that I could calm my stage fright by just playing like just playing long, calm things. And I would just sort of build up the overtones, and I would just do that over and over and over again. So that sort of became my technique for discovering stuff. So I start out that way, and then I go into the studio and I organize. I have like hours of material that I've improvised, and I like organize it. I'll play along with it. I'll start sort of playing a game of Tetris. It's like musical Tetris, fitting all these things together. And then you Tetris yourself into a box, and then you have to go back and find the essence that you're at. And it's this like back and forth between like refining, design. Like all people I know who design, you refine until you have like the core. And then you've kind of lost the essence of the core, so then you have to go back and experience it again, and then sort of build that back into you. And so it's really a design process more than a composition process.
I love it. It's a great answer because it's so applicable. That's one of the things that I keep thinking about with the audience that we've got in the world. That little camera right there is the world, and the things that I like about this show in general, but about you specifically, is there's everything you're saying translates into just the creative spirit, wide creative spirit. Wow. So one of the things that's on everybody's mind, everybody in the audience, I talked a lot about it. In fact, I shouted it from the rooftops on the internet, is that you have done a better job, perhaps better than anyone that I know, of cultivating and creating this balance between art and commerce, between basically, when I introduced the show, you've gone rogue. You sort of said, I'm not going to have managers and labels, and it was so nice for our producers to be able to talk directly to you. Sometimes there's middle folks, and what's the ethos behind that, and B, like, how do you manage that? Because you've got a huge following, you've got lots of places to go, lots of things to do.
Right.
Give me those.
Well, it is
pieces.
harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
But
more and more popular.
I didn't start out that way. Like I initially started, I just wanted to play this live layered cello music, and the people in the traditional music industry that I knew through working with other groups were just like, very nice, but that has no market. And so the message I got was either start singing or stop what you're doing. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just keep doing it, and I'll find my own audience, because I've had this like faith that my audience was there and I could find them. And so thank you for the internets.
Yes. Well, this show thanks you as well. Like without this, it couldn't be possible. I turned down shows from the Bravos and the E's because they wanted me to do stupid stuff.
It allows you.
It
allows you to find your subculture that you are connected to, or subcultures, the Venn diagrams of subcultures, and find them, and we can find each other. And so I just want to have, my music is a very direct experience for me, and I want to have a direct experience creating that music with the audience. I get a lot out of just the process of making it and meeting my listeners, And I don't want there to be any middleman in between. It's very direct.
Is a middle camera okay? So we're
Yeah, camera's
broadcasting.
okay.
Camera's okay, great.
But also, like, I feel like, you know, I want to empower other people as well. That's my latest thing, to know that you can do it on your own. It just takes time, thinking about like how you can, what in this chain can you do yourself. We do need help. Like I do have a lot of help.
I need a lot of help, I promise.
So, and the bigger you get, the more help you need. So I'm still always trying to find more people to help me. But
so
I think
let's talk about just a little tweak on that, and so the democratization process. Like, you're able to do what you do in part because of, you know, you have 1 million and something Twitter followers, and you've built that audience organically, but that's a communication device that you have with your fans.
Yeah.
So there's technology. We've got a helicopter flying over. I love it. They heard
sounds
you're
like
in the
they're
building.
like right there.
They're like circling right
They're
there.
coming to get me. I'm not here.
Taking you to your next gig, right?
Yeah.
I don't have any help. Excuse me, I gotta get my helicopter and fly to my next gig. No, but there's we have tools at our disposal. We no longer require permission from anyone to be able to do what it is that we want to do. There's not the label, there's not the manager saying yes, no, left, right, up, down. And now you have technology at your fingertips. So what are some of the technologies, like to give the folks at home specific advice, what are some of the things that you do to connect with your fans? Because that's what everybody wants to know.
Okay, I think it doesn't matter the what, like what is the tool. It's not, you know, I'm using Twitter, I'm using Facebook. It doesn't matter. You have to find your own medium that works well for you. But I think that the key thing about it, and it sounds really dumb, is that you have to be totally authentic. That's my only strategy. That's the only thing that I really do.
Can we clap for that? 'Cause that's I would say that's not one of the most important things.
It is, and it's funny how many people I see who are trying to do it. There's two things. One is that, and the other one is you have to keep at it. So again, it doesn't matter what the tool is. I use whatever tools are available, and it just so happened Twitter was a good tool that was available at the time, and I really like it. But just keeping at it. Like I had years and years where nobody cared what the hell I was doing. So, and now maybe a few people do. So
A few million.
But, and also it's not always on. Like, you know, it's up and down and up and down and up and down. But anyway, so that is like, I know that it's important to think about how you're using social networking, how you're using the tools, but I find that that really impedes my authenticity. That if I do something because I know that I want to get something out of it, it's like going to a party, you know, like the people who are really desperate aren't always the luckiest ones at it.
Right. Well said.
You know.
She said it, I didn't.
You can kind of see that, and it's sort of, so you know, at the same time, we all are probably really desperate, but it's kind of, you have to connect with people individually and just enjoy the moment, and I don't know, it's a very organic thing.
It's very organic and very authentic.
And I happen to think that, you know, if you can just keep at that for long enough, it will actually work.
It's the classic 10-year overnight success thing,
It is,
right?
yeah.
Like when you emerge into pop culture, people don't really realize you've been digging ditches for 10 years.
Yeah, you have.
And there's a lot of hope and a lot of
Right.
like stuff that gets torched along the way, but it's that, you know, looking at hurdles as things to keep other people out, not necessarily you.
Yeah, and then there's other things, you know, like you can't pay me to tweet, you know, you can't, like, there's none of those things.
$15, please.
Yeah.
So there are, again, a lot of questions pouring in. We're getting a little bit short on time, so I really.
How did that happen?
I know. See, it goes fast.
Goes
right?
fast.
It does go fast.
Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? We'd like to go to one really quick, and then we'll move into a song. Please. Yeah, there at the back.
My question is about, you said something earlier about perfection, and I was kind of curious about that, if you could talk a little bit more about it. It's this, it was the, you know, there's this kind of myth in the culture about artists being seeking perfection, and you said you were bored by perfection, that you get bored. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, humans, nothing in nature is really perfect. It's sort of like, you know, I think the interesting things are when you have something that is almost perfect and there's a slight variation, you know, like I just really enjoy that in nature, I enjoy it in art, I enjoy it in buildings, you know, and I think that, I don't think there is perfection is this elusive goal. You know, it's like utopia. We keep trying to create utopia, and it doesn't necessarily exist either.
I actually was sort of set free when I realized that imperfect exposure, the pictures that I gravitated towards of my own and of other people's were imperfect exposures where the subject wasn't perfectly framed. They're all of the things that we're taught classically not to do. And when you can sort of have the baseline from which to deviate, is really in that deviation where I personally found a lot of merit, and it was definitely not perfection. It was the opposite.
At the same time, the constant trying to achieve that perfection is a really worthy goal and can lead you to some interesting places, because that's where you develop craft, and then craft allows you to, know what to do and things,
Right.
So, I don't know, I think that's probably true for photography.
I think so too. And I think we should let you play one more song, and we'll come back and we'll give away that signed print at the end of that.
Well, I'm going to do a super speedy version of Optimist. It's a song called Optimist, and I wrote it for my son Alex when he was negative 2 months old. He's now almost 2.
Game of twos here. All right.
So here we go.
Take it away. Thank you, Zoe. So grateful. Wow, it was amazing. Again, I'm Chase Jarvis. Thank you so much for tuning into Chase Jarvis Live. You're out there. We've been with Zoë Keating. Our Twitter handle's at Zoe Cello, Cello, right? And pay attention. You're on iTunes. You're on Amazon. Direct to your site at zoekeating.com.
Yep,
Is that right?
zoekeating.com.
And we all out there in the world will know very much to pay attention to what it is that you're doing from here on out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
No, honestly, it's
Thank
huge.
you.
I want to give away the signed HP
Oh, yeah.
print that I photographed of you earlier. It's to be Hamilton photo, a treat that I think is really insightful. Knowing your craft is what makes it so you can actually improvise.
I said that?
Yeah, you did. So smart, so smart. If you're looking at our live page, right here, there's an email sign up if you want to be notified to be able to be in the live audience and hear about who we've got upcoming first. Then you should pay attention there. At the end of this broadcast, right next door, my good friends at creativelive.com/live are doing a great thing about photography. You should tune in there. We've got other shows coming up. Tune into our live show. I wanted to say that there's an amazing blog post on my blog right now that just went live while we were doing this about hyenas posing with people. It's just stunning photography. And last but not least, huge thank you to the folks that help us put this on, to HP for being our presenter, and supporting what it is that we do, and Broncolor and B&H as well. So big love to everyone out there. Big love to the internet. We miss you. Please pay. We're going to follow you forever.
thank you.
Are we not? We
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Signing off.
The rhythm be working up on me. The new to the old.